Matt Rainey's brand, so hot right now.
Work smarter, not harder. Be your own boss.
Listen to me. Listen to me. I have something to say.
Wherever you go, there you are.
You can do it.
Welcome to the Epoch Podcast, your weekly dose of mental foreplay. My name is Matt.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
Christina.
I'm David.
And this week we are talking about Youpreneurs and the digital nomad lifestyle. So if you're not familiar with either of those I don't know, they're not comments, they're terms, I guess. If you're not familiar with either of those terms, Youpreneur was created by Chris Decker, who literally, as Austin was telling me earlier, wrote the book on Youpreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Literally wrote the book. And digital nomads, we are literally joined by two of them today on the podcast. So,
Yeah, maybe we should have them define what that is.
that sounds appropriate.
Well, basically it's, in my mind at least, it's just the concept of being location independent. Your work is all done online so that you can be wherever you want to be. In our case, that is not in the north in the winter.
Yes.
So that's generally, we avoid the snow as much as we can, the cold, the blustery wind, etc.
The grays and the browns.
It's glorious.
Really,
Don't kid us.
Where we are is pretty brown, though.
What?
Where we are is pretty brown.
Yeah.
We're in Texas, so
It's just a different kind of brown.
yeah,
And it doesn't hurt to be outside.
it's a warm brown.
It doesn't hurt.
I mean,
Is this-
summertime it hurts to be honest.
Yeah, right?
Well, we don't stay here in the summer, so
True.
Okay, so that's exactly it though, right? You guys can get wherever you want based on the seasons, based on what you have in front of you.
that's
I know
good,
we won't get into personal details, but you guys travel all over the place to spend months at a time with family and get to different areas, not just around the States, but around different countries.
yeah. David grew up in Costa Rica, so we go there sometimes in the winter as well. It's fun.
And you can do
It's
that
also-
because of your online presence instead of being in a building
Correct.
from 9 to 5,
Yes.
Monday through Friday.
Yeah, totally.
When did-
And we hope.
When did this
Costa Rica has
happen?
internet?
We started the first year that David basically left his job was the end of 2011. So it's been a number of years. Some years we've traveled more than others, but yeah, we also homeschool our kids. So there's a number of components to making it work, but so far it's going pretty well. We enjoy it. One of the things about being a digital nomad is that you don't have to make a ton of money in order to be able to do it generally, or at least if you work things right. That's one thing that I think sometimes prohibits people is thinking, oh, you have to be really super successful in order to do it. You don't necessarily. It does help that we have family that live in the South, so it makes it easier for us to go to locations that we want to go to.
Yeah.
But in general, there are some tips and tricks and things that we share on our website, ticoandtina.com, that can help make it more feasible for anybody, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I hope you share some of them today. And if you could right one of my earlier wrongs in this young podcast here, I talked about you.
We're like 5 minutes in, Matt. You already made the mistake.
And I dorked it up about 30 seconds in, and I was like, well, Youpreneur, a term coined by this guy, I never said actually what it was. So, Tina, go ahead and keep going in there with what a Youpreneur is, how that differs.
Oh, actually,
if it does.
I don't know. I feel like Austin has been more into that scene.
Well, you be the host and ask him that.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, I'll fumble it. Like, I think it's basically
No, your
brand is
Austin,
yourself.
please cut her off, Austin. Please.
So, so digital nomad is kind of the idea of like whether this is kind of framing Youpreneur and how it's a bit different because you can be a Youpreneur and be a digital nomad, but you don't necessarily have to. So digital nomads, it's about, it is about that freedom. It is about making your money not geographically specific.
Mhm.
And, you can run multiple e-commerce websites or blogs and not necessarily put yourself out there. I would say ticoandtina.com is in some ways a Youpreneur representation as well.
Mhm.
But the idea of Youpreneur is specifically that you're building your personal brand. If you go to youpreneur.com, you'll see, I'm looking at the site right now. It's time to build the business of you, and then they have a text feature on their top banner. It says, become the go-to blogger in your industry, become the go-to podcast in your industry, become the go-to consultant in your industry. So the idea is that you're building a brand around yourself.
Mhm.
And some industries can do that more nomad-like than others. You could imagine if you're in more of a specific niche, let's say of a spiritual group, you're a Baptist traveling minister. I mean, in the church world, there's kind of been Youpreneurs and that kind of build personal brand. They've been doing it for years. They're called itinerant preachers, right? And so when you have this preacher come in and you've got these people that have been traveling the country, traveling the world for years around their particular message or their particular brand. But now with the internet and with the digitalization of all things, it's enabled people to become experts. If you're in the coffee industry, you can become an expert on coffee. If you're in any sort of, design industry, you can become an expert on that kind of design. If it's just the idea that you become a go-to authoritative voice with what it is that you know really, really well. And then from there, depending on the industry, you can either travel wherever you want and be a digital nomad, or you can, have your house, dig your roots, and just travel as you see fit. But they're very closely related, but they're not necessarily the same.
Sure. So, I mean, blogger, podcaster, author, teacher, communicator, consultant. I mean, they all kind of revolve around communication, it seems like, but there are a couple that don't. So you mentioned e-commerce. Is there any other, arenas that people can hop into as, with Youpreneurship or digital nomadship? Digital nomadity?
There you go.
Nomadism?
I know for my part, the digital nomads, you can, if you have a digital skill.
Mhm.
So if you're a designer, all you need is your computer and the internet. You can design anywhere you want. You don't need to put your name on anything. Use services.
Like graphic design or architectural design? Is there any kind of particular design? If it could send by file, you're good?
There's so much stuff. Like with sites like Upwork,
Fiverr.
Mhm.
But there's a couple others.
Even then you get educational sites like Udemy.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Or some of those. I can't think of some of the others, but
if you have a skill, if you're adept at a skill, and honestly, I mean, and you have a camera, you can sit there and
Or your phone, actually.
Yeah, crank out these Udemy is a site that has a bunch of courses that you can buy, and then the person will have like a bunch of these 1 hour sessions or whatever recorded. A lot of them don't even they won't even edit them. They just sit down and spew out stuff for about 20 minutes and then call it done and on to the next one.
And they're actually making money from that, because I've seen some pretty choppy videos on YouTube. I'm like, I don't know why people listen to that.
I don't know. I've never put anything up on Udemy, so I would not know. Some of the ones that I've bought are, one of them is like really good, but it's mostly the guy sitting there and he'll go through building a site. And so, you do this and this and this, and you can see his screen and see his mouse moving around, and then you do this and this, and then you do this and this, and okay, it's over. And then the other one is kind of a funny one because he's a vocal coach and he is very quirky. But yeah, anyways.
Sure.
But that one was more like, because there's some stuff that was recorded with good quality and some stuff that's like somebody was there with a phone, basically. So yeah.
Udemy does have a bit of a quality control mechanism, more than YouTube. And not the least of which is you have to actually create classes and kind of Udemy does force you, just by how it works, it forces you to create a progression through what it is that you're communicating. But the idea is if you're good at what you do, go create a class on it and teach other people.
Yeah. There's also lynda.com.
That's the other one, yeah.
And then there's also there's some sites that are more specific. One's called SitePoint that has a lot that's more geared towards web development or even coding.
Pluralsight is really, really big on the web development and technical training. They have Pluralsight's probably my favorite, both layout and content. They're super. There's not a lot of what we're talking about is the lower quality. Pluralsight is not. They don't really tolerate low quality. But these are individuals. Point being, back to the subject of our podcast, these are individuals who are good at what they do and have figured out how to make extra money or even make a living off of teaching people online how to do what they do.
Yeah, and I guess we should make the distinction, like the first couple of ones, Upwork and Fiverr, and I don't remember if there's another. I think there was one that was called Mechanical Turk. That might have been years and years ago. But those are more like that's a place where, freelance, you offer your services.
Yeah, so, fee for service, yeah.
Yeah. So, but the other ones are you have a skill or whatever, or you have some knowledge and you put it into a course and then you sell the course. And these are basically like marketplaces for courses or something like that. But Fiverr and Upwork and whatever, you're there, you're like, I can do this kind of web design, or I can do copyright or whatever. And you'll have an account and you pay money into an escrow, and then once your task is completed, then you release the funds from the escrow and they get paid to the person that did the work, and the site gets a cut, and that's that. And you're done.
I think something that's important to note when talking about this kind of stuff is that it's really easy to feel like you, A, don't have anything to teach people, or B, aren't good enough at it, or don't feel qualified. And basically anybody can teach something. And part of the thing is that when you're so familiar with how to do something, you don't recognize that it's not easy for everybody.
Right.
And there's
say that
so
again
much,
5 times.
Yeah, there's so much that people want to learn, but you just don't recognize that you're able to teach it. There's stupid simple stuff that you can teach that you wouldn't recognize right off the bat. So if this is the kind of thing that you're interested in being able to do, you have to broaden your horizons of what it is that that you can do that you don't recognize, I guess. I don't know.
There's a good filter for this that I've seen my wife do 100 times. So have you ever watched a video online on how to do something, and then in that video you're like, why is this person doing it that way? Right? That is all the evidence that you need that you should be the one doing the video. Right? If you think that the person's doing it wrong, or I get it, there's differences of opinion and stuff like that, but just in general, like, oh my gosh, why did they do that? Why didn't they just do this, this, and this? Oh my gosh, hello, you're a better expert than the person that you're watching their video. And how many people would be watching your video? Yeah. Right? So.
I'm smiling.
Jen, I saw you smirking.
I'm smiling because I went to school for 4 years to learn how to teach people. And I'm struggling with this conversation because, yes, everyone does have interests and strengths that they can teach, but there is a certain art to teaching, and there are certain, like Austin, what you were saying, like, why are they doing it that way? Well, because that's the way they learn, right? And there's different. Now I'm just like, maybe I should go on and make how to teach video or whatever.
Totally.
Like, because I'm not, like, there's visual learners, there's audio learners, there's kinesthetic learners, there's not the one process to fix something. There's lots of different ways, and depending on what materials you have. And so I think the better the teacher can be is bringing different resources and different ways to do it. So when someone is watching, like, why did they do it that way? Well, because my brain operates this way, but you can also do it X, Y, and Z if that's the way your brain works. Giving away stuff for free.
Totally. And for sure, that's funny. For sure, there are people that are more gifted. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, giving away stuff for free, which is part of being a Youpreneur.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, Christina.
No,
Sorry.
there are definitely people that are more gifted in the skill of teaching and can do a better, more well-rounded job. However, it's easy to think, if I don't have all of these bases covered, I'm not being a good teacher. But that's not necessarily the case, because like you're saying, different people learn different ways. If all you need to do is find those people that learn the way that you teach, and there's way more people that are probably in that category than you might think on the front end. And part of the thing is not being afraid to niche down. And that's what the vast majority of people have the problem with, is that they want to try to hit everybody, because it's a scarcity or poverty mentality of, well, if I'm leaving money on the table if I'm not getting everybody. But that's not true, because you're not able to market to everybody. You can't sell to everybody at the same time. If you're wanting to get your message out, the more niched it is, the more you're going to be able to connect with your target, and you can grow from there. But if you don't start in a niche, it's very difficult to actually get momentum.
Right. And I think that's something that we really worked as a group with the Epoch, because if you don't clearly market who your niche is and who you're trying to market to, people are like, well, that didn't make any sense to me. They're a poor teacher. And then next thing you know, they're word of mouth or whatever. And well, no one's going to spend time with you. But if you're explicitly saying, this is the way I learn and this is how I'm communicating, if this drives with you, come check it out. And then that way people aren't disregarding you because you don't match up.
I don't think we would necessarily get negative word of mouth. I think people just not care.
Well, I think about the example Austin gave it with his wife and how she's like, why are they doing it that way? And it doesn't make sense to her. Well, to the person making the video made sense to them, but she's going to go tell her friend who's going to tell their friend, hey, this so-and-so person.
Is she though? I mean,
I don't know.
That takes a lot of energy. I mean, I guess people do that. That takes
There's
a lot
of people on the internet like, this sucked. This website, these people, like.
They'll definitely make a comment.
Yeah.
Right? And then instant share. Like, that stuff happens.
The amount of troll energy on the internet is astounding.
Well, sure.
No, because I'm not an internet troll. But
a lot more people also just close the window and move on. Yeah. So it's both, I think.
Maybe something that would have been helpful earlier on here is to, you asked, like, people make money on this for real. And I think.
Like poor quality stuff is.
No, but I'm saying, like, people.
I don't know.
People that you already know are doing this. There's some gigantic names, and like when you hear these names, you're like, oh, it might be easy to say, well, those are big people, those are gigantic people. That's not me. But so at risk of creating that sentiment, which I don't want to do, still list off some people like we talked about earlier. Chris Decker is a pretty big guy in the space. Pat Flynn's another big guy in the space, but maybe bigger names that you might know are Gary Vaynerchuk or Tony Robbins, Kerwin Ray. I mean, there's a lot of names. I mean, we talk about, like, let's not name drop here, but
right.
But there's a lot of big names that have been doing this thing for quite some time.
Now let's just name drop for days, and then we can tag them all in the post.
I mean, that'd be a strategy, I guess.
And there's like Bill Johnson, and then like Danny Silk, and then there's. So.
I mean, there's a whole family of them.
But yeah, there's people that are doing very, very well in this stuff, and even people that with names you don't know are on platforms like Udemy, and they're doing real well. Like I remember when cryptocurrency started to rise up, and people started entering that market. there were people that were trading on markets that had never traded on a financial market in their life. And so they're doing horrible things. But as a result, people are like, hey, there's a niche. There's a ton of people coming into financial markets that were never there before. I'm going to go on a place like Udemy and create courses. And those people have done very well.
And
Yeah, it's just,
my question is,
Well-
what do all those people have in common?
Internal drive. Intuition.
Honestly,
Probably not even that.
like, at least in my mind, the number one thing that they all have in common is that they just started doing something.
Do it.
They weren't experts when they started. Nobody is an expert when they start. They just know a little bit more than the people that they're showing stuff to. Honestly, that's the majority of the thing. And you gain so much experience by teaching.
Yeah, sure. So those guys that I was talking about, they were doing chart analysis of financial charts or technical analysis. And as they gave some of that away for free, as also mentioned earlier, as they're giving that away for free on YouTube, they were able to then say, hey, the real good stuff is in my private channel, or the real good stuff's in my Udemy course, or what, this is just a teaser. This is just a taste. And so, I don't know. I think that's kind of a basic tenet of being a Youpreneur, is that in marketing yourself, you give people a little bit. It also creates this problem, though, where everybody's giving away a different little bit. And so what are some of the challenges that you've maybe faced along those lines?
I think it is at this point not to Youpreneur versus digital nomad, because we are largely focusing on that personal brand, and personal brands kind of require that teaching skill that Jen was talking about. Like, not everyone's a good teacher. Well, if you're not a great communicator, then you probably won't develop a great personal brand. That doesn't mean you can't make a living online. It doesn't mean you can't be a digital nomad. You might not be able to teach it well, but you can do graphic design, super fast, lickety split. Throw your name on, Upwork and Fiverr and travel the world and do whatever you want to do. Now, as far as some of the challenges, Matt, you're talking about, it's, for me, the building a personal brand the biggest challenge is something back to what Tina was talking about as far as focusing on a niche, because you do know a whole lot more than what you can put on a 5-minute video, right? And so I think about, like, when was the last time I Googled this really generic phrase like how to cook? Right? No, I've probably Googled how to cook a cheeseburger, right? So what if you found the niche of, I can teach you how to cook the world's most amazing cheeseburger, and I become the cheeseburger expert? Now, it doesn't mean I don't know how to cook a steak, or I don't know how to make a salad. Of course not. But it does mean that you're going to become the expert that they then grow from there. So the biggest challenge for me has been, like, okay, I can do a lot. And as an entrepreneur, as a visionary individual, we just did a podcast. I don't know if it's going to air before or after this, on Lemon Leadership. I am a luminary. So I'm an idea person. And so I have dozens of them a day. But there's kind of this area of expertise that I really, really do well. And there might be 3 or 4 that you do really, really well, but maybe one of those 3 doesn't have an industry expert out there yet. So you might be able to know how to cook cheeseburgers, how to fry fish, and how to make an amazing egg roll. Which one of those 3 doesn't have an expert out there? Which one of those, when you Google it, doesn't have good responses and go there? And so that has been the biggest challenge, is being honest with yourself. And kind of, for me, it's been, okay, I can do a lot, and yes, I'm super smart, and listen to me, I have something to say. But seriously, what is the one thing I say better than most people? And more importantly, what is the one thing that there's really nobody saying? And if you're blessed to find this, like, giant gap in the market, and you really can hit a home run, then sure, you might knock it out of the park and become a billionaire. But if you're just really good at cooking cheeseburgers, how many people do you think Google that every day? And you want their blog, you want your blog and your cookbook to show up in front of them. And then from there, in your cookbook, you can put steak and chicken and other things and kind of build from there. But picking your niche has been, I think, for me, on a personal level, been the most like, oh, but I want to do it all because I love it all, because it's all my personality. But the world doesn't need to follow Austin. You know, they need a specific thing that Austin does better than anybody else. So what is that? Figuring that out and then sticking with it. You know, I've got one of my favorite stories to use about being true to your brand is, if you're familiar with Glenn Beck, the Glenn Beck program, he started the Blaze News Network. And the Blaze News Network was, you know, the truth has no agenda. Yet the Glenn Beck program clearly has an agenda, right? And so you don't get to go off brand and change your expertise and expect to keep everybody around. And so if you become the cheeseburger expert, don't suddenly switch to woodworking, right? You're not going to, you might know how to do woodworking, but you're the cheeseburger expert. Like, just stay in your lane and make a good living. So that's been, as a luminary person, that's been my biggest challenge, because I love to do everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, it feels like it can feel like you are just saying no to a lot of things, and that doesn't feel fun a lot of times. But if you can shift the perspective to you're saying a really big yes to something, and recognize, I think that's been a lot of our problem in the past, was just having that, I mean, it's maybe a cliche, but the poverty mentality of being afraid of missing out on something because of niching down, or being afraid of getting bored, honestly, with doing one thing. But what I'm recognizing more and more is that when you do choose something and commit to something, it opens up so much bigger than you thought that it could. There's so much more depth to even a cheeseburger than you could guess. And when you, especially creative people, don't want to have limitations, but when you choose limitations for yourself, you actually find a lot of freedom in creativity. It opens up your creativity to come up with new ideas, bigger, more interesting ideas than you would have if you were, I'm going to do this and this and this and this. But you're not going deep into that idea, so you're not getting truly creative in any one thing. You're just kind of slopping all over everything, if that makes sense. But when you limit yourself, it opens up in ways that you wouldn't recognize on the front end.
So there's a saying for people who don't like having a boss, that you shouldn't start a company to be the boss, because then you're going to have hundreds of bosses, whether it's the employees that work for you or the customers that work for you. As somebody that's working on your own personal brand, do you find that there are cons that you didn't expect, like downsides that you didn't expect?
I just have to say, Matt, your hosting duties you're knocking it out of the park.
Oh, thanks.
You're asking great questions. Go ahead, Christina.
That is where that is where my hook came from. Wherever you go, there you are. It can feel like, oh, being my own boss, the freedom, all the, you know what being your own boss does is it highlights all the ways that you were failing in outside stuff that you didn't recognize because you were blaming all the outside stuff. So like when you're the only person you answer to is you, you recognize a lot of stuff that you need to get better at.
You can't blame the workplace environment.
No, you can't blame your boss. You can't.
My boss is so stupid.
You can't blame your coworkers.
Nope.
You can't
My
blame
boss
the
is so
circus
stupid. Where do you work? For myself.
My coworkers are lazy. Who do you work with? Myself.
Precisely.
My right hand man's just not getting it done.
Yeah. I think we all need a drink after that one. I think for me, the challenge of has been, I don't think I've ever met an author who, given by the time they finish a book to the time it was published, that there's not something in the book that they wish they could take back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so there's this false idea that people who put this information out have figured it out,
Mm-hmm.
and it is the answer. And especially in the Youpreneur world, it is, once you start to kind of develop your voice and your brand and your message, the freedom to change it and grow and mature, you do realize that you're not your own boss, that your customers and your audience, they are the ones determining what it is that you get to produce. And so they become your boss. You're, I haven't had the privilege of working with employees as of yet, but I can imagine that also creates a different level of stress and responsibility. But by and large, from a Youpreneur standpoint, once you find your niche and you develop that reputation, you will find that the freedom and the kind of devil may care attitude that kind of helped you start it. Again, back to this Lemon Leadership podcast, we've got like shifting modalities from being the visionary to being a manager is not always super easy. And I know a lot of, I come from the Christian background, so I know a lot of traveling itinerant ministers that they have an entire circuit that they do every year. I mean, that's how they pay their bills. And if they went and shared some of the new stuff that they've learned, they would lose half their income. And so you aren't your own boss. In the end, the market is always the boss. And so you have a choice to make. Am I gonna develop a brand that is built on changing ideas and changing the message? But that's what I'm trying to do with New Age Christianity, is I'm trying to build a brand that allows for that. But by and large, most industries, unless you build your brand as, I am the industry, the cutting edge expert, right? I'm the one you come to when you want to know what's new in our industry. Okay, well, now you've given yourself the ability to always be on that cutting edge, always change your message, always change the products you recommend, and so on and so forth. So there are ways to do it, but by and large, it's very difficult to give yourself the freedom to change your message when that is your income. There's a lot of fear you have to face, and there's a lot of potential ridicule you have to face. Well, you said, your book said, so on and so forth. Yeah, I know my book said, I wrote that 10 years ago. You don't think I've changed? People don't want you to change. They want you to say exactly what you said 20 years ago. And if Tony Robbins isn't preaching exactly what he preached 20 years ago, then he's a failure for some people. And that's not always fun. But you gotta choose what you're going to build.
And speaking from an educator's perspective on that mindset, I'm really hoping to see a change, because that's a very fixed mindset of, you need to say what you said 10 years ago today. And as we come down in progression and we have this growth mindset, sorry, it left me. It left my brain. On that growth mindset.
I didn't fart, I swear.
I looked at him because it was evolving parent materials and whatnot. I was like, you've had me look up some stuff. But that growth mindset that as we continue to progress and learn and gain knowledge and understand how the world works, that people in our society are going to have more of this evolving thought process and accept new ideas quicker and faster, because things are changing so much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
I personally kind of look down on people who are the same as they were even a few months ago.
Well, you're
That's
judgmental like that, so it works.
I don't look down on them in the way of, but there is just a measure of like, oh, okay, you're just kind of asleep. You're on autopilot.
Yeah.
Because there's not an industry in the world that's not being changed by technology.
Oh, certainly.
Right? And I come from a spiritual religious background, so it's very easy to find people who haven't moved. And it's just, I'm like, what? how have you not grown? Like, even from a spiritual standpoint, like, how have you not matured? How have you not dug into some of the things that you were stupid about, 2 months ago? But I think you're right, Jen. I think that is shifting. I think more and more people are realizing that that kind of static way of being doesn't suffice in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So Jen brought up Evolving Parent, and that's a project I've worked on for a while now. I've also not worked on it recently in a while, and I think it's worth kind of addressing here the idea of, I think I'm pretty good at starting things, but wherever your guys' projects are right now, you had to start. And at the beginning, when you're starting something and you don't have an audience, it can be rough continuing to put out material and then looking at your view count and going, all right, I just put in how many hours for that? Awesome.
Right.
Like, so how do you find that drive to keep going? I'm taking notes. Go.
I think that's why when Tina asked earlier, she's like, what do they all have? I'm like, it's that internal drive. Like, yes, you have to do something, but then you have to find that internal drive. That's my 2 cents. Go.
That is a decent answer.
Yeah, there is an aspect to that, but where does that come from? I feel like that comes from believing in something so much and enjoying it, at least on the front end. I feel like you need to really love what you're doing in order to make good progress. And when you don't feel like doing something else or escaping from it because you enjoy it and it's not work, that definitely helps. Some people are motivated more by money. This is something we talked about in the Lemon Leadership thing. So being able to see a return is like having small wins can be something that's really important for people to be able to stay motivated to keep going. And if you can recognize what your small wins are, or what would feel like you were succeeding a little bit to help you keep moving forward, I think that helps, recognizing what your motivations are, setting yourself up to win, I guess, and maybe pulling in some help if you need help to move forward.
Right on.
I think there's 2 other aspects of being honest with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think, you listen to Tico and Tina that travel the northern and central hemisphere, or the North America and Central America, and Central Hemisphere. Oh boy,
It's good at it.
but and you think, oh, they've got it easy. Look, you got to be honest with yourself. You're starting a business, right? So, my mother's actually everybody. There's so many people looking to become life coaches, and I think I think that's the pastor of the future. So I think there's room for thousands of them in the world. Everybody's looking for a mentor. And I think we need them. The best athletes in the world have coaches for a reason. So why not the best livers in the world? Why would you not have a coach? Livers as in people who live.
I know.
Liver needs a detox.
So you want to live well, have a coach. I get it. And I think that is the pastor of the future. And she's becoming one. She's getting trained by Mary Morrissey and going through, she's got emotion code and psych-k and different tools in her belt that I absolutely love. And, watching her, helping her set up her business, there is an aspect of this industry that kind of feels like, well, I turned it on. Where's my money?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And look, just because you open up a restaurant on the street corner doesn't mean that you're going to become the next, Cheesecake Factory.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to work. And so you look at people who have been able to kind of find a flow in their life. And if you asked Tico and Tina, I guarantee you there's parts in their life where they realized, man, we did not put enough effort into our business this month and we're suffering. It's called work for a reason. And so it's not just literally write one blog and live off it the rest of your life. It is grow, mature, keep going. And that includes a financial investment often, where you are willing to, depending on how serious you want to be, you want to go from 0 to 100, 0% to 100% as far as how much time it is in your life, then develop a plan. And then the other, so that's one piece is kind of you are starting a business and to be serious with yourself. The other one is to understand that building a brand in this world, one of the number one things that you're going to have to swallow is that it takes consistency. There are rare unicorns where you just happen to write the perfect blog and put it in the perfect spot, and something happens in the news where you become, financially successful overnight. But by and large, if I go to your website and I only see a couple pieces of content, I'm going to find somebody else who's more of an expert. And so there is a measure of also being honest with yourself. Like, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure that I have the longevity to put out so many pieces of content without anybody reading it or anybody listening to it. We've got a podcast. I mean, let's be honest. I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers. How many people are listening to this Epoch podcast? It's relatively new. We're now recording the 17th episode, and we have understood that we need to have some longevity. We need to have some stick-to-itiveness before people are even going to respect what you have to say. And then, you get 100 episodes in, 200 episodes in. Now people know, oh, these guys aren't only, this is what they do for a living, but I can trust that when I, subscribe to their podcast, I'll get an episode next week. And so there is a measure of longevity that you just have to kind of grin and bear it. Like, look, no, there is nobody listening right now, but I don't care. I'm starting a business and I'm going to keep opening my doors. And if nobody comes to my restaurant today, fine. I'm going to do what I can to advertise. I'm going to do what I can to continue to produce food and make sure that when people do walk in, it smells good. So it's just a matter of kind of grit, I think, that a lot of people don't really expect that you're going to have because there's so many people out there saying, hey, start this online business and become a millionaire tomorrow.
No, I think that's something that's really true about that too, is that when I'm sifting through looking for podcasts on a particular topic, I'm looking for somebody who's got some episodes, under their belt. Like there's something really to be said for that consistency and that longevity. Now, to a different point, some people come in to the digital space maybe as a digital marketer, and that's their whole thing that they do. But as somebody that's coming in from a different angle, you still have to do your fair share of digital marketing, or find your ways that you're going to make money off the content that you're providing. Maybe you do sell some directly, but what other opportunities to make money are there in that space?
Oh boy. There's so many.
I mean, I'll just to get us started here, we'll go like affiliate marketing, for example. That's something that we've begun to explore here.
Explain that.
Yeah. Go, Matt.
Oh, you don't want that one? All right.
No, I can do it. I just want to.
We'll take it, man.
To put you on the spot.
All right. I'm on the spot. So affiliate marketing is when you're not necessarily selling your product, but you found something that you find very valuable, a product or a service that you find super valuable, and you believe in it so much that you provide a link to it through your content. And that link, if somebody clicks on it and decides to partake in that service or product, then you receive a commission for it. It's something that's you can do through, as maybe it's not the highest yield, but you can do it through Amazon, or there's certain sites that you can go to that will provide just huge lists of products that people are waiting for affiliates to market for them.
Such as CJ Affiliates.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, in that case, if you wanted to go to our website, and we've mentioned Lemon Leadership multiple times in this podcast, you could purchase the Lemon Leadership book through our link. It wouldn't cost you any more to go buy it on Amazon, but we would get a little bit of a cut.
You'd buy a book that will help you, and you would support some good people at the same time. That is called good fecal.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I just watched Pikachu last night, so maybe you're going to say Pikachu.
You had a question?
I do, but we were talking about affiliate links, and let's keep that train going. And then when we
different ways to make money.
Yeah, different ways to make money. Go.
I mean, we've mentioned the e-learning. So if you want to create classes on things like Lynda or Udemy, and Lynda, by the way, is spelled with a Y, or Udemy, or even, a plural site if you're in the tech world. I mean, there's so many educational sites you can do. I mean, how many times you've been, download this free whatever, and then it puts you into some group where they're trying to sell you a membership, right? So mastermind groups or membership-based sites where, you pay $5 a month to, get this particular information or whatever. There's obviously e-commerce that you can sell. You can sell like we do, Amazon products on our site. You can make an entire site out of that. And then there's, oh my gosh, this is like limitless. If you write a book, I mean, heaven forbid you become an actual author, and sell your book, or sell access to live events where you're going to do a webinar, or, we have our podcast. If the listenership of this podcast gets sizable, then we can start doing sponsored, spots to say, hey, sign up on Udemy using the epoch.org link, and we could get paid that way. So I don't know. I'm probably missing 1,000 of them. David or Christina or Matt or anybody.
Some low hanging fruit would be when you get to a point, Google Ads. Something.
Or duh. Yeah, right.
Advertising space on your website. It's all good.
My favorite websites, for the record.
David, go.
I don't.
You mean with more ideas?
Yeah,
there's like the whole fulfillment by Amazon type thing where you get into products, but you don't do any of the work on the actual physical product, but you're selling
drop shipping stuff.
Yeah.
There's also, you can sell stuff on eBay, which is obviously,
Do you have to carry the?
You have to do a lot more stuff on eBay because you have to have it there.
All right. So in case people aren't familiar with the term drop shipping, it's like it's me selling something that I don't actually have the product in a warehouse for.
Right.
It's all held somewhere else. I'm just selling it.
Are we going to we'll probably do t-shirts at some point, right? With some of the sayings and quotes that we've got.
Yep.
So if you go to our site, you buy a t-shirt. I don't have t-shirts sitting in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Like that order goes to whoever we have the printing company with. You place the order and immediately gets shipped to your house, and nobody in this company ever saw the product in office at any point in time. Yeah. So, and that's really great when you build a brand. I mean, if you've never studied self-publishing, it's the same way. Like, writing a book, we're working on a preparedness book that when you order it on Amazon, it gets printed on demand and sent to you. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't even come, again, I don't have a box of books sitting in my office. So there's lots of ways to do merchandising in general through printing services and fulfillment services.
And one of the nice things about that is while you're taking the risk of the time investment to create that product, you're not taking the financial risk of having all of that stuff printed or created and then sitting in your house and not getting sold.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's definite upside to that.
Another way that once you get a little bit of traction is brand deals. Those are by far my favorite ones. The brand deals that we did with Tico and Tina, the brand will generally give you a sample that you can keep, and then sometimes they give you one that you can give away too, and then all you have to do is just kind of mention it or write a post about it or whatever. And I think by far those are the ones that are the most profitable. And
those are essentially affiliate marketing, but on a whole nother level.
Yeah, because you're
scale.
creating content for the brand as well, generally.
Right. And then I did forget, like I did mention like Fiverr and stuff like that. If you just have basic services, it is kind of easy to overlook. Like, look, if you're good at designing, just design stuff for people, and you can make really good money really quick.
That's the other thing too. Even more than Fiverr is like the marketplaces that sell like templates, design templates, or video, stock video or stock photography, or all those kinds of things. Those are also things that you can get into, and you just join up with a marketplace and provide essentially a product, but it's a digital product. So
Yeah. Another one would be coaching. So if you are an industry expert, you can just tag on a coaching service and a personal one-on-one option. Events, planning, whether it's retreats or conferences or whatever. That's another big thing that comes out of the Youpreneur side of things, at least.
mm-hmm.
And then maybe a distinction to make is, you've talked about if you're just doing those services for people, like that's active income. One of the bright sides of living in a digital world is that not everything needs to be created over and over again. Once you create it, sometimes that's it, and you can just sell it over and over and over again.
That's where digital products like really shine, because you obviously don't need to warehouse. You don't need to have an inventory or anything of the sort. Generally, you have very little to do with the actual sale. You have it on a site. It's a digital file, a PDF, an MP3, a video, whatever, and you sell it. You literally have no overhead, and it's very passive in the sense that it can sit there on the server. The person buys it, they get it, it rinse, repeat, and
Yep.
Then your key is just the traffic and knowing your target market and how to target them the best.
yeah.
That there's no cost of reproducing the product. You don't need to, when you sell T-shirts, there's basic cost for every shirt you sell. But every time you print a shirt, there's going to be a cost to you. But every time you print an ebook, there's no cost. It's literally free. Just you could print 7.7 billion of them, one for every person in the world, and it doesn't cost you an extra penny versus printing one of them.
Right.
So,
and even with the shirts and the whole drop shipping thing, in that sense, I mean, if technically speaking, you are paying for the shirt,
The percentage of the sale, though.
but it's also, your whole legwork as far as having it on the website and selling it and taking the money, et cetera, is non-existent. So to a certain scale there, it's not really that much different than a digital product, but it is a physical product in a sense. I don't know.
Right on. So
Yeah.
you had a question earlier?
I did, and we didn't talk about it in the pre-note shows, so I apologize for throwing this curveball at you guys.
We'll just delete it. It's all good.
But it just popped in my head because when we first started our whole Epic journey, we started with a conference called Spirit and Truth, and that's kind of stuck with me through over the years. I even have a Pinterest board called Spirit and Truth where I keep all my spiritual quotes that motivate me and whatnot. And as we think about digital nomads and Youpreneurships, and we're talking about all this truth things like these strategies and how to make money and how to find your niche and how to find your branding. Do you guys, or have you thought about how to cross the stream and bring that spirit side into it, knowing that we all come from a spiritual kind of background of, law of attraction or meditation or anything like that you do as you're developing your brand?
I know for me, the spiritual component of building your brand has become, it's the most important. But then again, that's my brand. I almost laughed.
The Christianity guy thinks that spirituality is important.
Right. Right. To be able to say, hey, if you want to know how to add spirituality to your brand, just sign up for one of my coaching classes and I will. No, but it is a component of the law of attraction, The Secret. A great video. I think The Secret falls a bit short in areas as far as the mechanics and nuts and bolts of belief and how to believe in yourself and how to think about the brand you're building. But nonetheless, The Secret is a great place to start if you want to kind of get into how the universe can conspire does conspire with you to create the future you desire. And let's be honest, we think that, it's amazing to me when you look at the internet and you look at people who want to live this life, and they immediately talk themselves out of what their idea is, because they think, well, nobody would want to listen to me, or somebody's already doing that, or there's not enough. And you can find 1,000 reasons why not to try something. And if you just flip the switch to believing that there was more than enough, that there were more than enough people who were Googling the thing that you're really good at, they were Googling how to cook a cheeseburger, that there were more than enough people that wanted to know how to cook a cheeseburger better than they currently do, that there was more than enough, even if there were 3 other cheeseburger experts, that there's still enough that you can still make a living off of a quarter of the cheeseburger Googlers. Like that, flipping the switch that there is more than enough in this world. Cheeseburger Googlers. Like, say that 5 times fast. Flipping the switch, there's more than enough for you, I think, is probably the number one thing that I've found people who have been toying with this idea of digital nomadship or youpreneurship is they think that there's just it's too scarce. And that guy's already got his niche, so I can't go after it. And look, how many fast food restaurants are there, right? If fast food was, if those companies followed that same thing, you wouldn't have, and let's just stick with one same style of food, right? Wendy's, McDonald's, Culver's, I'm trying to think of like Burger King, like Five Guys. They're all in that burger industry.
No.
That's like
right.
I'm still stuck on Austin's cheeseburger Googling. Got me thinking like the burglar from
Yes.
I was thinking hamburglar.
Yeah,
Hamburger.
that's what I was thinking of. But,
Yeah.
but hamburger Googler. Googly eyes. I don't know.
Kids stuff in his mouth.
So I actually have something to say in addition to your point, but if you want to finish your point, then that would be
No, I'm just.
that.
It's just
If you could
Flip
get
the
to the
sw-
point.
flip the switch of scarcity, like
Yep.
thinking that there's not enough.
Mhm.
That is by all means the most important spiritual side of this, is what you believe is possible.
Mhm.
Because if you think you're out there competing against the entire internet, when you look at the internet, the numbers get stupid.
Mhm.
They get so stupid because you're not just marketing to the people who live in your town. You're not a restaurant hoping to get people within the 5-mile square radius. You are literally marketing to the whole freaking world, at least the English-speaking world, if you're listening to this podcast. That is millions and millions of people.
That's one of the really interesting things about having a podcast with service with demographics that you could see just statistics that you could see
Mhm.
coming in. I mean, it was like kind of exciting to see like, hey, people from Luxembourg are watching this. People from India are watching this. Okay, or
Yes.
listening.
The funny thing is, like, case in point to this, that what you're saying, like there is a food channel it's in the literal boondocks of southern India. The guy is an old guy, I think he's like 74 or something like that. Hardly has any teeth. No joke. Hardly speaks any English at all. And their YouTube channel has views in the billions.
It's awesome.
It's a food. And basically what he does is he cooks something. So, okay, today we're going to do, fish and chips. So he shows you how he cooks fish and chips there in India. So he'll go get the fish. He works with his sons, like 4 or 5 of his sons. That one son takes the video, and then the other ones help him chop up tomatoes, onions, fish, etc., etc. And then he basically cooks it over a fire with these big old whatever, and he makes these videos. They put them out. and they get views in the millions and millions per video.
You know, it's
And-
crazy though. So I hear you, and that's a beautiful example of like the most random person still being able to
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
The other side, people can hear, oh, so I need billions to make money. No.
No.
So I'm going to speak for my own part that with New Age Christianity, on average, it's still fair. I haven't even marketed one bit. It is 100% word of mouth. On average, I have anywhere from 60 to 100 people a week. No, I'm sorry. That is, if I look at the numbers of people who watched the latest episode, it's in the 50s. So, and then there's people who listen to the older episodes and stuff like that. So let's say, as far as up and current content, I'm in 50 to 60 people a week listening to my latest episode, and just on that one project, I'm pulling in 1,000 to 1,200 a month.
Sweet.
Right. So you don't need billions.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, and that's how I've monetized. I'm a nonprofit organization, so people can donate. I've had people donate services, like my chiropractor donates, his services. So I have that's
Cool.
saves me $160 a month, stuff like that.
Mhm.
That's how I've chosen to monetize. But if I had a book, or if I did any classes or whatever, you don't need billions.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You literally just need a niche,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make a living. It's really not as hard as we like to think it is. But again, you got to flip that scarcity switch.
Yeah. And on that, sorry, I completely got sidetracked with
The Indian dude.
yeah. There is a concept called the long tail.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Ooh.
the idea is you have, let's say, your graph, and it starts at the top with things that, let's say, well, the reason is keywords. Okay.
Keywords on search engines like Google.
Yeah, search engines. So, like you'll have the keywords that are like, for example, NFL or whatever, they get this massive traffic that tons of people are searching for. And so if you're ranking at the top of that, then you're going to get, X% of the traffic. So you're going to get a crap ton of traffic. But as it goes down, it doesn't go down all the way and then get to zero. It goes down, and then it gets to a point where it levels off, and it kind of trails for basically ever and ever almost. And you'll have, a ton of these keywords that will get, 300, 400, 150, 60, etc. And the idea with that is that you can target these and rank for all of these, and they all build up to get you good traffic. And one thing when I was studying about this, what the guy says is they are literally limitless, because you're always having new concepts that are building
Right.
in the world. Think about the fact that what is this? 10 years ago, there was literally no traffic to the word iPhone. Is it 10 years ago? Probably
11, 12, something like that.
11, 12.
Close. Or Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all of these. Think about how many people are searching for iPhone now. Just
Right.
to rank number one on iPhone, and this is a concept that was not around 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Or how to do this with the iPhone, how to play music with the light. All of these are keywords that are really, really high up, but they were concepts that are very new. So, even Facebook, even YouTube, all of those things were not around 20 years ago, 15 years ago.
So speaking of keywords, what are some tools that people can use to further their Youpreneur or digital nomad journey?
I think I'd want to limit it to my top 3 or 5.
Sure, because we are coming up towards an hour too. So we're actually
There's like a limitless. So so if people want to, you're going to need a website. This is largely, or the assumption is that you're going to need a website, or that you're going to do a digital nomad or digital Youpreneur. And so for me, WordPress is number one. WordPress is responsible. I don't know what the numbers are now, David and Christina. Is it upwards of 30% now of the world's websites?
It's a very big number. And
I know it's over 25% of the websites you've ever visited are WordPress sites, and that includes sites like I think Fox News is a WordPress site. I think I know BBC. It's BBC that's a WordPress site. So WordPress is simply a content management system, and there are themes and plugins and all sorts of things that you can build off of it. But WordPress is a open source software that is well known. Certainly, because it's so well known, there's security issues, not unlike Microsoft and DOS. But WordPress is the number one tool if you're going to start this. I'd say another one that is less, for me, that is not so well known in the sense of on that scale, but it is something I use a lot of, is AppSumo. So sorry guys, I just stole that one from you. David and Christina turned me on to AppSumo a few years ago, and they are a super amazing company. They come out with deals for digital services or digital tools that are mind-blowingly inexpensive. Basically, in my estimation, imagine if you were a company that was building a new software to help people produce promo videos faster. So in this case, Relay That is a service that I was looking at. And so you wanted to get a bunch of purchases of your software really quickly because you need cash flow. You go to AppSumo, you sell 5,000 lifetime memberships for $50, when normally the membership is $100 a month type of thing. So it's super crazy deals, and you can get a lot of cool services through AppSumo. And then probably my third top tool is really non-negotiable if you're going to have a website, which is you're going to need a hosting service. If you're going to have a website, it needs to be hosted somewhere. And David and I, as the two tech guys for Epoch and other projects, I have become a super big fan of SiteGround for WordPress site hosting. So WordPress in general, AppSumo, and SiteGround. And then there's like hundreds of others, but I'm just going to limit it to those.
If you don't want to learn something like WordPress, there are other options like Squarespace, Wix.
Mm-hmm.
The websites have become much more user-friendly in the last 5 years even, but 10 years. You can design everything from the front end. You don't have to get into coding and everything. So basically anything that you want to do is just getting easier and easier to get into. What were you going to say, Hen?
Me?
She was talking to me. No.
Yeah, I don't know. If you want to get into the whole keywords thing, it is a little bit big brainish. You kind of have to.
Are you saying you're really smart?
I am saying that.
Look at the big brain on David.
Oh, so huge.
He does have a very big head.
But sucks for hats.
An exceptionally large cranium, sir.
But to be honest, I think you can get, especially with keywording and SEO and all that jazz, you can get so bogged down with it, and then you can be like, I don't know what to make, and I don't know how to put it out, and to be honest, if you're just starting, just put something out there, and just do it. Just put yourself, just start putting yourself out there, and like Austin say, have consistency. You're probably going to do way more with that than you will ever do with trying to figure out the right keyword or figuring out how to target this or that. No, eventually, if you want to get into something like that, then once you get to a certain milestone or whatever, you can say, I'm gonna start looking into this. But to be honest, don't get so caught up in trying to figure it out how to do it exactly perfectly right at the beginning, because the more important thing I feel like would be just go in and get something out there. Go and put yourself out there first.
Like I like to say for a long time, why do you want to wait to start practicing? You're going to have to practice. You're going to have to gain experience, period. There's no way to just jump in and be an expert at something. So start practicing. Start doing it.
You can spend 8 months to try to build the perfect website. And then right before you launch, you realize it is the slowest website that anyone has ever built because you didn't know that part.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not that I'm speaking from experience with the original Epoch website or anything like that. I'm just saying.
Just saying. One tool that I do love is called Tailwind, and it helps you schedule stuff for Pinterest, and it has a bunch of tribes where you can submit your graphics from your website or whatever to other people to pin, and you pin their stuff, and it's just kind of like it's a happy Pinterest place. And Pinterest is a very useful tool for basically anything you're doing because it's the visual search engine essentially, on par with Google and such.
So
YouTube.
Here, let me put this out here. So if you would be starting a website or something like that, what social engines?
We're doing this.
Yes. What social engines, social media engines do you would you target initially first? Like, because I mean, we have about 1.5 million. So
Social media options.
Social media options: Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook.
To me, that depends on your industry.
Yeah, it does depend on your industry. But
Still,
but that's another topic though. Is where you're going to focus your content essentially.
Yeah. Who your target market is.
So could you give, like, say for an example? I don't know.
But by and large, like, it's important to be in video in this day and age. And my personal opinion is Pinterest is a really big deal because it is a search engine. It has become a search engine. But YouTube, Pinterest.
YouTube.
But again, it really just depends. That's what I'm saying. Google.
YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world.
Right. And I think Pinterest is the third. So,
yep.
But honestly, like Austin said, it does depend on your market. Because like there are still people that use Facebook. I don't get it, but they do, and a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So
it's a lot of people.
It's
apparently.
a lot.
Yeah, like I was like again, I mentioned I was helping my mom set hers up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's looking at Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and Facebook. Sorry, Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of talked her through her brand and her archetype and all this stuff. And I said, by and large, Mom, none of your brand is going to be on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost a waste of time. Facebook is largely an older audience now. A lot of the millennials and stuff have left. And then LinkedIn is more of a professional audience where she's looking for kind of a corporate audience as well. I said, so I think you should focus on Facebook and LinkedIn. And then if you want to add Twitter later, that's fine. But and then her stuff isn't very visually appealing. It's, so Pinterest, not so much and stuff like that. So it is very much target dependent and industry dependent. If you're a professional consultant, you need to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. If you're selling widgets, LinkedIn is a waste of time, largely, unless it's a professional widget. So you just need to know your audience and where you're headed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there what's that? Is it CoSchedule? Yeah, the CO schedule.com, right?
Yes.
So hard.
COschedule.com. They are absolutely. They have some blog posts on marketing on
They're very
social
good at
that are mind blowing, and they also have a tool that helps you with headlines, and they'll give you a score. Like you write your tool and it'll say, hey, why don't you add more of this kind of a word, or you got the schedule, you got this score, you need to bump it up to this. Why don't you add a couple more words to your headline or take some words out, etc. I mean, it's really awesome. But they also have like as far as navigating the whole social media, what's important, which social media platform is more geared to professionals or to a younger audience, what time is best to post on stuff. They have PDFs with all of that, and their blog posts are like,
Very
manuals,
long.
very long,
Yep.
but they're packed, like jam packed with amazing information.
Mm-hmm.
So you probably should go get them now before they turn them into an ebook and sell them.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
I also have to mention a little quick shout out to Canva. That is visual art, very clean and well designed kind of banners and pictures and visual images is a big deal in this industry. And Canva has pretty amazing for what free services they offer.
Yeah. There are more and more of those options anymore, and it's crazy how the industry has changed. Graphic design, websites, all that stuff. Like, that's where we started in, and now, like, you can totally do stuff yourself for the most part.
Well, like back in the day, what was it? It's Photoshop, and that was basically it.
Yeah, it was like an $800 program you had to have on your computer.
Nowadays,
web-based services.
Yes,
That's what
that was. Is Pixlr? Is it like Canva?
Yeah, there's similarities.
Yeah, Christina turned me on to Pixlr the other day, and I was like, I'd never done any sort of anything like that with Photoshop, and I was able to crank out some.
Yeah, Pixlr, Vector, Canva. There's just so many services like that.
Well, maybe
Matt, you should probably take it over because we could go forever.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe best to have those if they come to mind, list them in your blog, and people can go there and find all this extra stuff that we've gone into through our blogs that we write on a weekly basis and post of these things. Maybe it's time to go around the circle and put out your closing thoughts.
My closing thoughts was something that Austin said that I liked a lot, so I wrote it down. And that is, there's more than enough for you out there. So whatever you're doing, whether you're working a traditional job or you're trying something new or you're just trying to push through a personal funk, there's more than enough out there for you. You are your own internal driver, and you've got this.
I love it. Yeah, I'd say, look, if you're interested in digital nomad lifestyle or the Youpreneur lifestyle or a combination thereof, in short, just Google it. Like, there are blogs and resources and videos and podcasts, and I'm telling you, there is a massive energetic movement in the human experience towards figuring out how to shift from survival to fulfillment. And if there's something inside of you that's listening to this going, man, I would really love to live that way, don't shut it down because you think, well, I never could. No, freaking Google it. Like, hit us up.
Yeah.
And we would be happy to help you. Like, look, this is what we're doing, and do you hear any scarcity in us? Like, well, as long as you're not in my industry, I'll help you. No, trust me, there is so much for all of us. So, I'm in a religious spiritual discussion with newagechristianity.org, and you want to come up and do, like, I don't know, new age Christ-centeredness.org, I'll help you. I don't care. Like, we're gonna reach different people. There is more than enough people out there, and let's do this together. So,
agreed. My biggest thing, I think, that we haven't touched on as much is, well, it does have to do with the mindset. You can really get in your own way really easily and without realizing it, because of beliefs that you have. And honestly, those are the kinds of things that you need to address. Ideally, sooner than later at the beginning, because the poverty mindset is one thing, but it can be showing its face in subtle ways that you don't recognize. Like, you can be afraid of succeeding, honestly, and self-sabotage without realizing it. Partly because you don't know who you are as a successful person, potentially. And that's not the kind of thing you would ever realize probably consciously, but if something is not working, go back to your beliefs, basically. And the poverty one is definitely a huge one. Scarcity. That's definitely one of the biggest ones. But even just being able to believe that you're worth doing something, that you have value in what you have to say and everything like that. There's so many little beliefs that go into it, but I've definitely recognized in myself sometimes that there is a little bit of fear or hesitancy of really succeeding, because what does your life look like when you're really succeeding? What has to change? And not being afraid of change, I guess, too, is one thing. But just take inventory of your beliefs, I guess.
David?
Just do it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
Right on. Whether you're just you no longer desire to work for somebody else and you desire to kind of take the helm and sail your ship where you want to go, or maybe you've listened to a previous episode about how the future of employment looks vastly different than it does now, and you recognize the value of having a personal brand. So much of it's being a communicator, and as in that role of a communicator, I think there's a temptation to act and to play a character, to not be yourself. And if that's what you want to do, then by all means go for it. But I think there's a lot of value in being super authentic. Not only does that make you relatable to other people, but when you push into your own flaws as a human being, when you become open to that idea, when you stop trying to hide it from everyone else, you realize what you've maybe been hiding from yourself, and it allows you to really grow in ways that you've never expected. So I know in an effort to be super honest with myself, it's changed the relationships I've had with people for quite some time, and it's been a really cool change to see how it's impacted the way that we talk to each other and the conversations that are now available. And I think that even in a digital space where we don't see each other, in person, that it still translates really well. So that said, thanks for joining us again this week. This has been another episode of the Epoch Podcast, your weekly dose of mental foreplay. We've got the blogs rolling out on a almost daily basis, I think. And the Epoch, epoch.org. I don't know.
Visit our Patreon.
Ooh, yeah, Patreon.
Oh, yeah, we're going to be putting up some behind the scenes, some stories that happen not on the episodes, some faux pas, etc.
Right on, and engage with us on social media, Epoch Ideas. Did I miss anything?
The links for all the stuff that we talked about on the podcast,
In our posts,
probably. So
definitely check out these podcast episode posts, because there's always a ton of stuff in there.
Yeah, and there was another thing that I was going to say. Darn it. Okay,
Bye.
well, whatever. Bye.